Hello everyone, it's Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. And today we're looking at a Vespiquen variant that actually uses a 3-3 Excadrill line in here to try and help us out with some certain matchups. So let's jump straight into it. This is a standard format deck. It's something I'm going to have to keep mentioning now. At the start of most videos I'll say either it's expanded or standard. You can pretty much tell if there's N's in there, it's going to be expanded. If not, it'll be standard. That will be the main hint for you. But here we are. Let's start off with the Excadrill. So we got 3 Drillburs and 3 Excadrills in here. The main reason I like to use Excadrill is because he has 110 HP, and we can also use Shield Energy with him. So we can actually survive hits from decks like Manectric EX, which is very, very popular right now. Also, it means we can survive attacks from Giratina, and it means we can survive attacks from stuff like Mega Sceptile. These are all things that Vespiquen could otherwise struggle with. I think actually the Sceptile's fine, but Vespiquen would otherwise struggle with Manectric and Giratina. So Excadrill really is a perfect partner for those sorts of things. His attacks, the first one is Dredge. This is actually a really nice utility attack for us. For a single colourless energy, we get to search the deck for 2 energy and attach them to this Pokemon. It really helps us thin the deck early game, and also it means we can find these shield energies so that we can actually survive attacks from stuff like Manectric, like I was saying. It also really takes away from the responsibility of double colourless energy. In most Vespiquen decks, double colourless is like the holy grail. It's the most sacred card in your deck, pretty much. You always need to find them. There's a huge emphasis on that. And Excadrill, thanks to his Dredge attack, we really don't need to utilise DCE too much with him. So it means we can save them for the Vespiquens in the mid to late game. His second attack is Maclaw. It does 50 damage for a metal and 2 colourless energies. So it means on the first turn that we're able to attack with our Excadrill. We can Dredge and then Maclaw at the same time because we have this Omega Barrage, so we can attack twice. So Maclaw just doing the 50. Obviously, we're going to try and hit for weakness for the most part, so that's 100 damage. And if we're able to use this twice, once we've dredged like the following turn, we can hit for 200. Obviously, really great numbers thanks to weakness. We also have the Muscle Band as well to turn that up to 140, which is pretty nice. It's also notable that the attack isn't affected by resistance. Manectric is popular, like I keep mentioning, and thanks to that... Thanks to Maclaw, we don't have to worry about resistance. We can still hit 140 in 2 attacks with the Excadrill, with the Muscle Band, which is actually a really nice number for us. It means that because they won't be able to one-hit us, at least in theory, with these shield energies, it means we can stick around for 2 turns, and we'll at least be able to kill 1 Manectric EX in the process. So that's really, really nice. It just helps us prize trade against Manectric very, very coolly. Also, being a metal type, we get through Regices. It's not even worth them setting one up because we just run through them so easily. So it's very nice to have in here. It also has a nice psychic resistance. It's not really coming too handy for us, but it's pretty good against stuff like Gengar as well. It means you can take hits where otherwise, if you were Vespiquen or some other 90 HP Pokemon, you wouldn't be able to tank that. So that's pretty nice. Overall, Excadrill is really nice. He sets himself up, and he just has the survivability that I feel like Vespiquen really needs in its deck. So it's pretty nice tech, I'd say. So playing a 3-3 count of him, that means the role of Vespiquen is much more being a late game finisher for us, like old versions of Flareon back in the day when it was just released in Plasma Freeze, when those decks started to crop up. I think it was in Plasma Blast where it started to get popular. That's when I won my first tournament with Flareon. So the role of Flareon back then was to be a late game finisher, and that's very much the role I have for Vespiquen in this deck. So just a 3-3 count, we don't need too many of these, but it is all about that Be Revenge for just a double colourless energy, 20 plus 10 more for each Pokemon in your discard pile. 90 HP Grass type is nice. It helps us have weakness on stuff like Seismitoad, which is still quite popular. And Free Retreat as well is really nice. It means we can skimp out on the amount of switch that we need in our deck, as you can see there, just playing 1. I'll get onto that in a moment. But yeah, so we have the grass typing. Metal typing is nice as well. And thanks to these evolutions, we have 2 more types. So we've got just 2 Eevee and 2 Jolteon as well. It's another free retreater, which is pretty nice to be aware of. If we start with Eevee, the following turn we can just search out Jolteon to try and move out of that active position. So he turns our stage 1s into lightning types additionally, which is really nice for dealing with stuff like Rayquaza. Even though they have Altaria accessible to them, it's more than likely that they just play a 1-1 line. Sometimes in the early game they've not been able to find it yet, so we can still get good usage out of this Jolteon. Also, at some point in the game where we can Lysander up a Altaria and kill it, this Jolteon becomes your bread and butter against Rayquaza. It's also pretty nice against Lugia if people are teching that in decks like Sceptile, or if they're teching it in Manectric as well. So Jolteon pretty good there for his typing, and also being a nice free retreater for the deck also. We have the Flareon as well, giving us good typing. Additionally, we have Fire, so we can hit for weakness on most metal Pokemon, and also some grass types like Mega Sceptile. If that starts becoming popular, we can stamp that out very, very easily with this deck. Again, it's just another Pokemon that we can throw in our discard pile if we don't need it, to help our Be Revenge get that much stronger. So overall, pretty nice having these in here. We also have a couple of supporting Pokemon just to increase the number of our total Pokemon, really. So we have 2 Unknown in here. His Farewell Letter means we can just bench him and discard him to draw a card. It's simply like a plus power for your Vespiquen attacks, and also helps you cycle through the deck quite nicely. The reason why I don't play more of this is just because we don't have the space for any more. If you were playing a straight Vespiquen, you would probably play 4 just for the Pokemon count, and because it's quite easy to dump and draw these, essentially playing a 56 card deck. Here we don't have that luxury of space because the Excadrill does take up some room, so just 2 in the deck. Finally, for Pokemon, we're just playing 2 Shaymin EX. We all know what Shaymin's about, helping us draw more cards in the early game to set up our board pretty much, and at any turn at any time in the game as well. Because we do have a few DCs in here also, we can Sky Return if we really need to. It can be really nice against stuff like Night March, just Sky Returning back into the hand, throwing up an attacker like a Eevee or a Flareon, just to help us sort of preserve our Vespiquens and our Excadrills as well. It's a pretty good strategy for us, so that's something to be aware of also. Onto the trainers now. We have a couple of one-offs. Firstly, Sacred Ash. It really helps us get away with just playing a 3-3 count of both of our main attackers. Sometimes there'll be games where you just need to use Excadrill. Sometimes there'll be games where you just want to use Vespiquen and Excadrill is pretty much useless. So Sacred Ash can help us cycle the attacker that we need. Also, we're just playing a 2 count of all of the Eevee pieces, so sometimes it can be useful to recover these and find them out again. So pretty useful there. We also have 1 switch in the deck. The reason why we only play 1 is because we have some free retreaters from Vespiquen and Jolteon, so in between turns we can go into those things. It's not very often that we're going to be catcher stalled. I think all of our Pokemon have a 1 retreat cost, so it's quite easy to get out of the active position. The only ones that have a heavier retreat are the Drillbur and the Excadrill, but we do have Dredge anyway, so if we are sort of quote-unquote caught in the active position, we can just Dredge and start attacking them anyway, so I'm pretty happy with just 1 switch in here. We have 2 Level Ball. Everything in the deck is searchable via Level Ball other than the Shaymin and the Excadrill, so for the most part we're getting good value out of those. We have a couple of Battle Compressor as well, pretty important, helping us speed up our Vespiquen, get rid of some junk that we don't need for certain matchups, even some tech supporters that we have in the deck, because we are playing a maximum 4 VS Seeker. It can really help us out to almost find extra outs for stuff like Sycamore in the early game as well, so Compressor, very, very nice for us there. We're also playing 3 Trainers Mail. This just helps us find our combo pieces and more trainers to keep us cycling through the deck quite nicely. We also have 3 Ultra Ball. They can be used to find Shaymin, which is pretty important. Also finds us our Excadrill pieces. And be aware of the fact that as well you can dump Pokemon from your hand to increase your output for the Vespiquen. All around good stuff there. We do have the 4 VS Seeker. It can help us cycle through Sycamores, which is really nice, and also finds our other tech supporters, which we do play a few in here. Like I was saying, Compressor, it's a really nice combo to have to help us dump these ones that would be sort of clunky in the hand, but if we have VS Seeker, we have access to them, so that's pretty nice to know. We do have 1 Hex Maniac in here. He can help us out against Vileplume, trainer locking us, so we can free ourselves of trainers, And sometimes if you have VS Seeker in hand as well, you can Hex Maniac, then VS Seeker it back to try and keep getting your use of trainers throughout the entire game. So that's pretty nice to know. Also helps out against Aegislash. We do play quite a few specials in the deck, so having a Hex Maniac is pretty good there as well. We also have one Teammates in the deck. Teammates, because we're playing mainly non-EXs, we have a lot of options to use Teammates throughout the game, which is really nice because it has very powerful searching effect, finding 2 of any card, helping us find stuff like DCEs, one of the only cards, and actually it's the only card in the game, in standard play at least, that can find you double colourless energy, so very, very good for us there, and obviously it's finding other combo pieces that we need. We also play a single Wally. It's interesting just playing one in here, but it does serve a couple of very useful purposes. Firstly, against Night March, it can be fantastic if we can. If we're going second, we can get the turn 1 Dredged Matclaw and have the initiative on some of these Night Marchers, which is very, very important to have in terms of prize trade. Also, it's really nice against stuff like Rayquaza, because they're going to be one-shotting you no matter what, very, very early on in the game as well. So having Wallies allows you to get Excadrills going earlier, and it means you at least have some firepower against them, so that they're not just tearing through your entire deck. So the Wally is very, very nice to have in here, even though it's just a one-of. We're also playing 2 Lysander. Pretty obvious why we play Lysander in here. It's for picking off certain things that we need. Having 4 types in the deck, there's often going to be things on your opponent's bench that have weakness to one of your specific types, so we can Lysander them up. Stuff like Shamans are often going to be a target, definitely for stuff like Excadrill, because we can use our first attack, Matclawing them to kill a Shaman, and then they have to bring up something anyway to get smacked for the face for our second attack of the turn, so pretty nice having a couple of Lysander in here also. Finally, we're just playing 4 Sycamore for our dump and draw, helps us get rid of stuff we don't need, and keeps us cycling through the deck. Pretty nice there. For tools, the only tools we're playing are 3 Muscle Band. Thanks to, again, we're playing the weakness game for the most part, so a lot of the time Muscle Band is going to be a plus 40 damage when you multiply it, so pretty nice to have that in there. And it just helps us hit these higher numbers for stuff like Vespiquen. We are playing 22 Pokemon, which is still a lot, but the Muscle Band is often going to be the real reason why we're getting these one hits with Vespiquen. Onto energy, we're playing 10, which is actually quite a high count for a Vespiquen based deck, but that's because of course we need it for Excadrill. We are playing these 3 shield energy. It really helps us, like I was saying, stay out of range of Manectric, stay out of range of Giratina, stay out of range of like a Mega Sceptile, even if they have Ariados in play. So pretty important to have these in here. Obviously we can dredge them from our deck to get them on him as well, so good accessibility even with just 3 of them. The only reason why I'm not playing more of these is because it's kind of annoying in the opening turns when you want to attach to like Combee or Drillbur or anywhere really on the field. It has to be a metal type, and at the moment we only have fighting type Drillburs, so you can't attach at turn 1, so it's a bit annoying, but it still outweighs just by how powerful it is being able to survive with Excadrill. So you need it in here, but I wouldn't play more than 3. We're only playing 3 double colourless energies. I've never found myself wanting more than 3 in the deck, even when we're using Vespiquen for the most part of the game. Every now and then we're going to get a Dredge off and attack with Excadrill anyway for the most part, so we only really need 3 to get us through the entire game, and it's pretty nice as well. It even works with Excadrill. It means that we don't always have to be dredging to set him up. If our opponents struggle to kill the first Excadrill, we can start attaching physically these metal and double colourless energies the following turn or 2 to set up a second Excadrill, which is really nice for us because it means we can keep on spanking them for huge numbers and hitting for weakness twice a turn, so that's really nice. Yeah, 3 is the right number, I would say. And finally we're playing 4 regular metal energy. I like playing a few regular metals. It means again we can sort of play around Aegislash quite nicely. It means we can dredge 3 regular energies onto our Excadrill to attack through that. It means we can then set up Flareon and it would work, whereas otherwise if we're dredging special energies onto Excadrill we have to Hex Maniac, and that would shut off our own Flareon, so it takes 2 hits to kill an Aegislash, or at least 2 turns. It would take 3 physical hits with Excadrill, so it's important to have enough regular energy just to get over these Aegislash players, which is pretty important, I'd say. and also it just increases the overall energy count of the deck, and means we have enough to cycle through with Excadrill when he's one of our main attackers. So here it is. We're using Excadrill mainly. If you've not noticed, it's trying to deal with Manectric because it's very popular right now. So hopefully we see a few of those on the ladder to see how effective he is against that sort of deck. And I think it's a very nice partner for Vespiquen. Like I say, it takes the emphasis off double colourless energy, and basically he just does more damage in the early game than Vespiquen would do. But then in the mid to late game, this Be Revenge just gets really, really strong, just naturally as well, because our stage 1 Excadrills keep hitting the discard pile, filling up our discard for the Be Revenge to get really strong. So there is the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I've been Joe from Omnipoke, and I will see you guys next time.